Well, welcome to another episode of The Tonight Show. I'm your host, Mike Caple. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching these. We know so many of you guys have enjoyed these shows, so we're going to keep doing them. As a matter of fact, many of you guys have been asking us, when is church coming back on Wednesday nights? What's that going to look like as well? And so before we jump into the rest of our show, I want to take just a few moments and address that with you all. So what we're going to do for the month of June and July, we are actually going to continue to do the Tonight Show every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. In conjunction with that, we're going to be doing weekly hangouts where we just get together, some with middle school students, some with high school students. We'll possibly might bring everybody together as time goes on, but for now, it's just going to be middle school students together and high school students together separately. And that way we can still see each other, hang out, have fun, give you guys a place to talk, give us a place to just check on you and see how you are doing. We also want to let you know that our Sunday services are actually back in the building, so we want to encourage you guys to come take part in those. But as far as our Wednesday night service goes, we will be not meeting during the months of June and July. And so we just want to make you aware of that. But we're excited about the Tonight Show. We're excited about the weekly hangouts, and we're excited about our Sunday services. And most importantly, we're excited to be able to get back with you guys in August. And so we cannot wait to do that. With that being said, though, let's go ahead. Let's jump in to some memes as we always do. And we're going to start this whole segment off with a meme here of the Goodyear blimp, and then the caption below it says, "This is false," right? This year has really, quite frankly, been tough on so many of us with COVID and sports and everything being going on, and now we've got all the protests and the riots and just people crying out for equality and having to miss things. I mean, so it's just been a tough year, and so we wanted to start that one off this way. We know many of you guys have been stuck at home, and I don't know if you've noticed this. This one actually is another great one. It says teenagers in real life versus teenagers on Netflix, and you can see there that obviously the teenagers in real life are way different than the ones on Netflix. That's actually really funny. Let's see here. One of the things that I've often wondered about with the COVID virus and Corona and all that stuff going on is why we haven't gone to stuff more being open longer and at night as opposed to just having their regular work days, and that way they can limit the amount of people, and maybe people could be able to get out of their houses then. And here's the answer why that doesn't happen. It says this is why aquariums aren't open at night. And you can see there that creepy dolphin just sitting there looking at you, trying to figure out like what you're doing there. And so we got a few more memes for you here. It says, me reading my birthday card while I pretend not to acknowledge the money. How many of you guys know the first thing you do when you open up the card is look and see if there's money in it? You read the card second. Don't act like you don't do that. For those of you that say you read the card first, I doubt that you're telling the truth right now. Let's see, here's another one. It says, no matter the size of your opponent, always give it your all. And it's the instructor there standing next to a child, and then the instructor just body slamming the child there. So no matter size. Here's one, because we know many of you guys have been getting out, spending some time with your friends. It says, when you're sleeping at your friend's house and they forgot to give you a blanket, and you can see the guy there laying underneath the couch, just sleeping. Yeah, I've definitely been there before. I've been over at a friend's house and gotten freezing cold and had to, suffer throughout the night trying to make that happen. And then lastly, here's one. It says, how the Sharman family be like right now, and it's got them with wads of dollar bills and money and just being all bougie with it. But anyway, at this time, we're going to send it over to Katy for Katy's content, so check it out.
Hey guys, Katie's content here. I just want to remind you that the Word of God is what is going to change your life. And so I encourage you to take those moments in the day to spend time reading God's Word and allow it to just transform your life. Last week we left off with Jesus being arrested. And so this week we're picking up in Mark chapter 23 when he goes on trial and is crucified. We see as he's arrested, King Herod sees that he has done nothing wrong and wants to release him, but the people of the crowd continue to shout and chant to crucify him, crucify Jesus. And so he gives into the people. He goes ahead and has him crucified. We read about how he was beaten, he was flogged, and he was crucified for our sins. And so I encourage you, go read about this week in Luke chapter 23.
Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching this episode of The Tonight Show. We have two very special guests with us tonight. We have Riley Renfro and Jordan Lyons joining us again for a second time on the show. First time doing it actually together. But anyway, we're going to be talking tonight about how, well, the best way to say it really, if you look at the news, there's a lot of people that seem to be at odds. And as Christians, I don't want that to be the case for myself. Because people matter to me. I know people matter to you guys as well. And I know there's so many of you that are watching who care about people and want to see your relationships with them thriving and growing. And so we want to talk tonight. I'm going to ask them some questions just about how we want to interact with the people that are in front of us, people that we're closest to, and even our enemies. And so I want to start us off tonight by just sharing one verse I think that kind of summarizes up everything, every relationship that we have. It's from Romans chapter 12, and it is verse 18. Romans 12, verse 18. Here's what it says: do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. And really, I think that should be the ultimate goal that we're striving for in every relationship. I mean, do you guys have any other thoughts about that? Like,
that's it.
That's it.
You can't make it any more perfect than that.
Right. So with that, like, we need to make it our ultimate goal to live at peace with everyone. And so let's kind of jump into this. Let's start talking. Let's first jump in and talk about the people that we're closest to, the people that are your best friends, the people that are your family members, the people that you truly have a heart for, that you're close to. And so when you think about those relationships, what are some things that you guys do to help you keep in peace with them, working through those times of conflict and turmoil? I'll start with you.
Okay. I think that, well, if we're talking about turmoil, like, so if you are having a disagreement about anything, I think it's just stopping and actually listening what they have to say. We often like to act with defense. Defense is our first response, when I feel like we should just stop, actually listen to what they have to say, and then always respond in love no matter what it is. Yeah.
So what I heard you say right there was taking a moment and just pausing in the heat of the battle, basically, right? And then in that moment, making sure that you're not, like, gun loaded under the table, ready to shoot holes in what they're saying, but literally taking the time to pause and say, because you matter to me, I'm not going to have a response ready. I just want to listen and understand how you're feeling and what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. I think that's so key. I think that's actually, like, great advice for anybody, whether they're a teenager, whether they're a husband and wife, married couple, working with a boss, coworker, all of those things. So what else do you think, Riley, for you, when you talk about working through that conflict, what are some other things that kind of, that you would add to that? Or
Yeah, when you say that, it makes me think of when God said, like, love does not anger. Like, when you talk to someone and are in disagreement with someone, you don't need to get angry and defensive, like Jordan said. And also, like, I think there is so much power in talking to people that have opposing viewpoints as you and have another side of the story to offer to you, because that's how we educate ourselves. If you just talk to people that believe the same exact thing that you do and you guys always agree, you're never going to learn anything more. But the moment you sit down with those people that you might disagree with and have that good conversation, as long as you don't get angry, ignore each other, and don't be like, well, you're wrong, so that's it, like, and then walk away. As long as you keep just expanding on those ideas, maybe you guys will change viewpoints by the end of it in a better, positive way, or you just are more educated and well-rounded as a person because you understand both viewpoints. So don't always take it as an argument, but take it as an opportunity to learn.
100%.
That is so good. I like that right there, because obviously when you do learn and you grow, that's going to help you hopefully maybe avoid the conflict that originally started the issue in the first place, right? And so I think that's so key. So with that, like, is there a verse or anything that pops out to each one of you kind of about basically how to respond in that moment, maybe about, like, listening, understanding, being kind, or anything like that that you guys can, maybe just add to this? Because obviously I believe in God's word. I believe it never fails us. I believe anytime we do it, that it's always going to lead us to the best possible outcome. And so, you guys have any verses or anything like that you'd want to share?
Yeah, so I have Colossians 3, verses 12 through 14, and it says, "Since God chose you to be the holy people he loves, you must clothe yourself with tender-hearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds us all together in perfect harmony."
Yeah.
So when I see that, we shouldn't react to people and carry ourselves as cold-hearted, mean, my way is the highway, like I don't want to hear your opinion. Like,
Right.
you should be able to listen to others and accept others for their faults and for their disagreements, and just that when we accept that and that we all have differences is when
Yeah.
we'll live in that perfect harmony, peaceful
So
state.
to summarize what I think you're trying to say, or at least the thought that's coming to me is like, when we do those things, basically what we're communicating is that no matter what that other person thinks or believes or says, that we value them as a person, and because we value them as a person, no matter what, we're going to treat you as a human being, and we're going to give you the dignity and the respect that you need.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of like before I get into this, like to bounce off what I was saying before, we often act as defense. Our walls are usually up before we just like listen. But I think first, before anything else, we need to always react in love. And we always need to check ourselves to make sure we're acting in love and responding in love with everything that we do, because that's how Jesus always led. So, a verse for that I loved was John 13:35. "By this all people will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another."
So basically with that, the love that we show to other people is that thing that signifies to the rest of the world and everybody else that we are a follower of Christ.
Yep.
I mean, and so, yes, so good. So I kind of want to talk about now, I mean, we've talked about these things. Let's kind of make the bullseye just a little bit smaller, and now talk about how we go up and approach that person. Because I agree with everything that you guys have said. Here's the one thing that I think sometimes we also get that we don't take into account. When it comes time to approach that person that maybe is overcoming a fault or that we want to engage with, how we approach that person. I feel like a lot of times we go, or at least what I've witnessed and what I've done before in the past, and kind of the lesson that I've learned in those seasons, is to go to that person directly, one-on-one for starters, and have a conversation privately. I see a lot of people where they want to go to their friends, and then it gets kind of the whole telephone game, stuff gets lost, and stuff gets, tweaked, and what somebody else heard through their life experiences and filters was different, and the way that it was passed on to another person, and then before you know it, you've got a big issue, and it seems like it all could have been avoided. So I just want to encourage any of you students, Matthew chapter 18, starting in verse 15, here's what it says. It says, "If another believer sins against you," okay, so notice this right here too, it says against you. So if you see somebody sinning against somebody else, yes, like you have an obligation to speak up and help that person, but at the same time, it's when this stuff happens to you personally, this is how we need to respond. It says, "Go privately and point out the offense." So if somebody sins against you, your role, if once they sin against you, is to go privately to that person and have a conversation that we talked about, and listen to them, seek to understand them, and for them to hopefully do the same thing for us in that moment. But we're to go privately to that person. Then it says this: "If the other person listens and confesses it, you have won that person back. But if you were unsuccessful, here's what it then goes on to say: take one or two others with you and go back again, so that everything you say may be confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses." So here's what I want to point out in that moment. Is first you go to that person privately. If you in that moment don't win them back, then it says you're to go to 2 or 3 other people, and basically that they're to confirm how you felt, what you witnessed, all of those things. And I think that's so key because, as Riley pointed out, we're trying to do this in a way that is honoring to that person, and we want to seek to understand and make sure that we're growing and that we're understanding it right. So by having those 2 or 3 other people come with you, it helps you be held accountable in that moment to make sure that you weren't misinterpreting that situation, which then helps you to walk in love with those people. So I think that's so key. And I want to encourage you guys to continue to read there because it even gives you further steps after that. But I want to start off with that. Now, here's the thing that I want to switch us up now, because we've talked about the people that we love and the people that we're closest to. What if we have that moment where we can't win that person back in that private conversation? What if we have that moment where we take 2 or 3 others? That doesn't happen. As a matter of fact, in Matthew chapter 18, it goes on to tell us what we're to do next in that situation. We're to go and bring it to the church, and then we're to treat that person as a Gentile and as a corrupt tax collector, basically. And what that means is that we're to treat that person like they do not have a relationship with Jesus in that moment. And so because of that, I think it's so important that we realize at the end of the day, even what's that conversation going to be like when people leave our presence? What's the conversation that they're going to have with other people about us in that moment? I think that's something that we definitely need to start considering more of, is more so not how that conversation went in that moment, but what's the conversation going to be after we leave. And so, what? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, that's really good. I said that's tea, but...
Yeah. So that's been something that I've really... just been considering here a lot recently. But with that being said, so now you have agreed to disagree with somebody, basically. And now maybe, that relationship is not what it once was. Or maybe there's somebody that is just like a complete enemy of you now. Let's kind of focus on what does our response need to be to those people in that moment. And if they are an enemy, how do we treat those people in a loving way where they still know that we're a disciple of Jesus, with respect, with dignity. So what do you guys think about that? Because I see a lot of people having relationships and then they're just like, you're dead to me, I'm cutting you off. And I don't feel like that should be our response.
Absolutely.
I know Riley has words about that.
Well, I wanted to start off by saying back to the verse in Matthew chapter 18, going to someone privately does not mean sliding up on their YOLO on Snapchat and putting an anonymous comment 100%. On there about how they did you wrong.
Preach! Come on! It's like,
and
I don't even have coffee in here, but if I did,
it's the tea.
Sipping the tea, yeah.
Also, going to 2 or 3 people about it is 1, not going to a group chat and talking crap on that person, and 2, it is not posting it on your story or on social media about how nasty this person is. Maybe you don't tag them.
Maybe we need to step out.
I think so. Honestly, I think so. She's on her soapbox now.
A lot with this quarantine, people are getting a little creative on how far they can push the limits on telling people that they're wrong.
Really?
And they're in the wrong. So, going to how we should treat our enemies and things like that, to me and Jordan were talking about this, I don't think I have enemies, and I don't like the word enemies because at the end of the day, it's a harsh word. It's like the word hate, it's just, whoa, I wouldn't ever want to deem someone my enemy. Right. I always want to be that person to be able to understand where that person's coming from. And
absolutely.
I think, to me, in my eyes, because me and Jordan had an experience where we were younger and a little more immature, where we cut off our best friend completely. Yep. I don't even know why. I don't even think she did anything remotely close to being
it was a fever dream, honestly.
Yeah, it was really bad. And I'm thankful to go through that situation because now she's our best friend again.
Oh,
we're a little team. We have all grown so much from it. But don't be so quick to cut people out from your lives because they did you wrong. Right. God told us to forgive as many times as it takes, with the story about how many times should I forgive this person? Right. 7? He said, no, 77 times. As much as it takes to forgive
7 times 7.
Yeah. That, all the 7s, you know?
All of them.
Yeah, so
regardless, it's a lot. It's
still a lot. And I think as long as a person is not bringing you down to their level and you can continue to stay strong in your morals and strong in your boundaries, and you can try and help lift this person up, pray for them, be there for them in love and not judgment. But as long as you can keep strong in your morals, I don't think there's any reason to cut someone off. Now, people can be toxic, and I know that is a very true thing, because even though I learned from that one point of cutting someone off, I've still had to separate myself from people
Absolutely.
that I still love and care for, and I want to call them every day and be like, how are you? How is your relationship with God? How are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
I know I can't do that, but I can still pray for them and be there for them when one day they might pick up the phone for me,
Right.
or whatever they need. So I think if you can keep reacting to someone out of love instead of out of judgment, there shouldn't be any reason to have enemies.
Right.
Or have to, like, cut someone off. You can take steps back if it's becoming toxic, or you are starting to let go of your morals and your boundaries for this person. But I don't know, the word enemies just makes me, like, really sad. Like, we all are not perfect.
Right. But yeah, I think that you should never just cut somebody off completely or completely write somebody off, because at the end of the day, everybody's your brother and sister in Christ, whether they are on that same walk or that same journey you are right now. You need to understand where they're at, love them where they're at, and even if that means you have to distance yourself from them a little bit, you should never cut them off, because they are still one of God's children. And
And even if they're not on that same walk with you, we have a desire to reach them and help them come to that walk. So to cut yourself off in that situation is...
And it is still our responsibility to pray for them and to love them. And no matter what, you need to end the conversation on a I love you. No matter how you feel about me, I need you to know that I love you and I will be praying for you. And there's nothing that you could do that would make me ever be like, I want nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're one of God's children, just like we are.
So you both have mentioned prayer, and so I want to kind of wrap this whole thing up by sharing a verse from Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 43. And this is Jesus talking, and here's what he says. He says, "You have heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven." And so I love this right here, because here's what Jesus is telling us. He's saying that loving others is being Jesus. And just as you alluded to earlier, that's the thing that marks you of that follower of him. But he tells us right here the way, he says, to love your enemies, and then he says, pray for those who persecute you. And I love that, because both of you brought up prayer. Oh, yeah. And what I see right here is, because we all want to know, well, how do I love my enemies? How do I still maintain that relationship? How do I still, be there for that person and love that person in spite of our differences, in spite of maybe how they treated me, what they've said about me, all of those things. And I think he tells us and gives us the answer to that, and that is through prayer. Absolutely. Through us taking not only our hearts and making sure that our hearts are in the right position as we're dealing with those people, but also for us to pray for those other people's hearts in that moment, and for us just to have ears to be able to hear them clearly and understand where they're coming from, and praying for that person to be able to hear our hearts clearly and understand our hearts. I think those are such big, important keys to how we do that. But anyway, I hope that you guys learned a lot from this. I certainly learned a lot. I enjoyed our time together. Thank you guys so much for being with us. We're going to come back to Jordan and Riley here in just a little bit. Well, obviously, guys, I know walking in love is not always the easiest thing to do. And so I just want to let you know that you are not alone in this. If you need anything at all, I'm just a call or text away. So is my wife, Katy. Any of our adult leaders, our student leaders, our church leaders, we are here for you, because we want to help you to walk in love with the people that are around you. Well, as you guys know, at the end of every episode, we have Mike's Wheel of Misfortune. As a matter of fact, last week, I had to do the Giant Straw Challenge. So let's check out a quick clip of me doing that right here. Well, hey everyone, I had to do the Giant Straw Challenge. So I have here a paper towel roll, and that's going to be my giant straw. I've got here some water, and so let's see if I can do this here. You ready? Goes out the wrong pipe. My eyes are watered. All right. Why did we put that one on the challenge? It makes no sense. We're gonna have to find a different challenge. If you got a different challenge, send it to us though. And any challenges that you have, we'll put it in the show maybe. Let us know. See y'all. Well, since we had 2 guests on the show tonight, we're actually going to let them battle it out to see who has to spin Mike's Wheel of Misfortune. So what they're going to do is they're each going to grab 1 egg, and then once they do that, then the moment you guys touch it, that's your egg. There's no fondling the eggs and putting them back or anything. Okay. Then you're actually going to have to crush them over their head at the same time. Whoever ends up with the raw egg is actually going to be the one that has to spin Mike's Wheel of Misfortune and do the challenge a second time. And so, how you guys feel about this? You guys ready?
Good.
Not good? Really?
Hey, can
You look really happy right now. So, again, we're going to let you guys pick your eggs. There's 1 that is raw, the other 5. So we'll have 3 rounds until we discover who has the raw egg. So, it's up to you. I'll let you guys just go fight over them.
Okay.
So, on the count of 3, gotta bust it over your heads. On the count of 3.
Oh my God, I'm gonna get crushed. Oh my gosh.
All right. 1,
I don't like it.
2, 3, go.
Ow!
Okay. Both of those are hard-boiled. So, we're good on that one, which means you guys have to do it
I'd eat
again.
Me too. It's kind of smelly though.
If you want to eat it, you can later.
All right, now.
No.
I'll
All
do
right.
it for another.
Grab another egg
Wait, where do I?
then.
Oh,
It's rolling away. Oh, okay.
I don't know what that was about.
Well, you just grabbed it before she did. I have no idea.
It's okay.
Katy did all this. All right.
Oh.
Ready again? 1, 2, 3.
Ow! Ow!
All right. So, Riley, you're going to have to spin Mike's Wheel of Misfortune. So, let's let you get cleaned up, and then we'll bring you back on to spin the wheel. Jordan, you got by without having to do it.
Heck yeah, I did.
We'll be back right after
sorry.
this. All right, Riley, Will, are you ready to find out your misfortune this week? So, I'm going to let you spin the wheel. Let me turn the screen recording on first. Okay. So, I'm going to let you spin the wheel so everybody knows what you're going to have to do.
Okay.
Which one do you not want it to be? Giant straw. So you got the giant straw challenge. You'll have to do what I did last week. So be sure and join us next week to see Riley doing the giant straw challenge. With that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching this show. We look forward to seeing you guys at our weekly hangouts. And we love you guys. We'll see you all later. Bye.